Welcome back to the Whiskey and Wisdom podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Kellum, and I'm with
Tyler, y'all.
And our special guest today,
Whitney Futrell.
Thank you for finally coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I say finally. You've been asking to come on for a little while.
I feel like it's a small world,
yes.
yeah. And so I know the wives.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And they have been saying, I need to do this podcast.
Yeah.
And so finally I said, yeah, let's do it.
Took us long enough to get you.
I know.
It was funny because my wife had always talked about it too. And I was like, I never put two and two together that like our kids actually go to school together.
I didn't
And
either.
I was like, oh, well, that's crazy.
I know. At pickup, I was like, wait a second. I think I know this. So
Yeah, that's too funny.
I love that.
Very, very small world. Before we get into how you became an artist or shifted into being a more full-time artist, what are you drinking on?
Okay, so I went with the old fashioned.
Okay.
I was diving into the whiskey moment tonight.
Nice.
I like it.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, it is a Starling Old Fashioned.
Yes, it is a Starling.
The big difference, they aren't silly, so they don't muddle their stuff in there. They make it a little bit more easy to do.
Yep.
If you order an Old Fashioned at a dive bar, they'll probably try and muddle it and then hate you for it. But they don't muddle here. I'm drinking, I don't even know. It's new to the holiday bar or holiday menu. It is a Sister Midnight.
Ooh.
That's why I haven't heard of it yet.
See?
Okay.
It's a Averell plum gin with a London dry gin. And then flavor-wise, there's some toasted sesame, miso, yuzu, and cocoa in the syrup that's in there.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's good, though.
Shout out to Carly for suggesting it. It is one of her favorites.
That sounds
That she's ever
delightful.
created.
It doesn't even taste like a cocktail, really.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's
Do you
good,
get the
though.
cocoa? Like, did you taste
I did
one?
not get any cocoa.
No cocoa.
It's like just enough
Just
to
enough.
like make you question, like, what was that?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
That's
holiday-ish.
my favorite thing about a cocktail
Yeah.
is when you're like, oh, this is delicious. What else is in there?
Why does that work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Similar to relationships and art.
So true. So true.
Good segue, Chris.
See, I know, right? Because talking about art and things that got you to where you are now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, married to Chase, who's a woodworker. We have two little ones, Noah and Penny. And we live here in Wilmington. I've been here probably 13-ish years. I moved here for grad school. Middle grades education is what I got my master's in. So
Sorry.
I love everything about it. I mean, I knew I was going to be a teacher since I was, old enough to know what you want to do. And like, I was the kid who asked for an overhead projector.
Oh, no way.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get one?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Like, would ask my teachers, like, can I have the teacher edition? Like, I was that kid for sure. And so I did that. I went to grad school and taught middle school social studies for a long time. Moved into Wilmington to help open Glow Academy, which was an all-girl charter school, and we really focused on kind of breaking a lot of good rules and, creating a path for girls in education and empowering them that way. So that was a huge part of my career.
So do you know HP Fangs?
I do know HP things.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I was going to say if...
Like, he's been there a while.
Grayson was one of my teachers when I was an instructional coach at Glow. So I like to give him a hard time because we're working on a little, maybe I shouldn't say, we're going to collab a little bit.
Oh, sweet.
So I'm excited about
That's
that.
exciting.
So I give him a hard time because I used to be his instructional coach. And most artists are not like good on deadlines as far as like planning things like that. So I like to give him a hard time about it. But I love Grayson.
Every time I see him, I'm like, am I allowed to use your government name? He's like, I don't care what you call me.
Like, which one can we choose
Right.
from, right? Stuff is great.
Yeah.
And so instructional coach, where I got to kind of coach teachers on teaching, which was a lot of fun and kind of like, put into them what they give into their kids a lot. And I loved that, but had always done the art business on the side and COVID happened when I had Nova, and then when we had Penny, we decided, I just felt a really strong urge to find a way to be at home with them while they were young. And so we decided to jump off the cliff and create a second small business out of our house and do the art thing full time. So we're coming up on 2.5 years full-time art.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
And talking about art and artwork, everyone, I hope you know art in general, similar to books, are all very different.
Sure.
And I think it's very interesting that your style is what it is.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit?
Sure.
I mean, I know what it is because I have it up in my house.
You
but.
do. You do. What an honor. Yeah. So I'm an acrylic artist. So I use mainly acrylic, and oil pastels are kind of like my medium. But most of my career is focused on figurative work. So for the most part, I paint a lot of women. And I focus on womanhood and feminine figures, but I also focus on kind of motherhood. And I say all the time that I focus on mamas and babies, and I have a lot of that. But I feel like when my career kind of pivoted to that, it was kind of like a light bulb went off. And I was like, why haven't I been doing this the whole time? I feel like it kind of collided my worlds together in some ways. And so, I paint a lot of figurative work. I paint a lot of women, and I kind of tell the stories behind that and the journey that we have as women to tell that story, and our relationship with our bodies, and just kind of some of the struggles we go through, things like that. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Fourth Trimester Mission
Yes,
at all?
I have.
Yeah?
I have.
I was thinking, sorry, I was just going through a process in my head. I started thinking of my question, and I was like, what can we do? But anyway, I was thinking they always do their really big gala at the beginning of the year and everything. I was like, that'd be a really cool giveaway for them to do if you're not doing that already. You could be, and I
have
don't.
not done that, but that would be a really fun.
Yeah, because I know a lot of the women there would probably definitely sign up for a commission piece or something.
Yes.
There.
The commission pieces has been like the biggest surprise about this journey, I think.
Yeah.
So for the beginning, obviously, I was just painting women that, I was inspired by, or, a figure that inspired me to start a painting. But I had one of my customers say, would you ever be interested in painting me? And I was like, my personality type is to be like, sure, and then we'll figure it out.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And
that's so cool.
It's so cool. I mean, it is the most empowering, wonderful experience to go through that with women. And it's shocking almost how vulnerable they get with me in such a short amount of time. And I'm able to get to know them and part of their story, and then try and capture that in a one-of-a-kind piece of artwork. And I like bringing them into the process with that. So it's pretty cool. I really love that part of it.
That's neat.
Yeah.
So, in general, I've seen your work everywhere.
Yeah. Oh.
Are any of your, well, I'm sure I know the answer, but I'm still going to ask, are any of your big pieces that you have out, like on exhibition, are any of those commission pieces, or are they all stuff that you were just inspired by?
No, I would say most everything that is like an original piece of art is just from some other thing that has inspired it. Unless I ask permission from one of my commission clients, like, oh, I also, because we normally go in and do like a mini photo shoot when I do a commission piece. So if we were like between a couple of different poses and I'm like, can I steal this? Can I paint it? So I've had a couple of those where they have given me permission, but they don't even know it's them when it's done.
Right.
So it's something, and that's kind of my process in general. Like I see something that inspires like the sketch to start, and then the painting kind of like takes its own journey, and the colors and the styles and the shape all kind of evolve as I go through the process. So it looks a lot different at the end than it did at the beginning.
So the really cool thing about the way that we do the podcast here is typically one person knows more about the individual than another.
Yeah.
So this time Chris knows a little bit more about you than I do.
Yeah.
So to kind of take a step back
Sure.
before we get too far into it, is at what point did you realize that you loved art and that you liked to kind of go in this direction?
That's a good question. So I think I've always just had that art gene about me. I've always liked to like doodle and paint on the side. It was never anything in a million years that I thought would be a career option.
Yeah.
I would say when I moved to Wilmington 15-ish years ago, I kind of leaned into it a little bit more. And I thought, this painting thing is fun. Let me try and do that. And so I would start to do like an occasional show. I had friends of mine start asking for like, can you paint do pet portraits and like things like that. And I enjoyed it, but it was more of like a therapeutic kind of thing for myself. And it was really, I think during COVID that I think we we dove into it a little bit more. That was before I was painting figurative work, so I wasn't painting my women then. It was more coastals and abstracts and florals and things like that. And yeah, so I think that's when everything kind of pivoted during COVID, where I kind of leaned into it a bit more.
Okay. Something I've always wanted to ask someone too, because I know the inverse with me.
Yeah.
So there's been things that I've been like passionate about, but I was passionate in a hobby sense.
Sure.
And then when I tried to monetize it, it became dreadful, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Is that something that like you got to a point where for some things you're like, you know what, this is work. And but for the figurative work, like I love this and I could pour everything into it. Is that something that you kind of experienced with that too, or do you just love it all?
No, I think I've been very aware of that, and I think that speaks to my process more than the actual like product. So I think I have tried to, you know, we run 2 businesses, we have 2 small kids, so like at some point you got to have like hours in the day that you're actually going to get stuff done if you're going to have a business.
For sure.
But with art, I have found that I can't put this pressure like you're going to go and paint from 8 to 12 today. Because if it's not there, it's not there. And if you force it, then I feel like I'd run into a brick wall and then feel uninspired, unable to kind of produce work that I loved. And so I've tried to block out time, but let myself still have room to be creative. And I think I've been able to kind of preserve some of that. I love it about the art still.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's still part that I'm navigating, is kind of making sure that I don't fall into that like I'm just doing it for work kind of moment, because I think that is a tough battle.
That's good. I'm glad that you're aware of it and kind of like, because that's the first part, like, because I wasn't aware of it when I first started doing it. I was like, okay, I just hate this now. Like, this isn't even fun anymore.
Right.
That's great.
What I have found lately is that I've been asked to do kind of like more teaching roles with the artwork. And I did not feel the same thing that I loved about being in the classroom when I taught art, which I thought was really weird.
Yeah.
Because I love sharing my artwork. I love talking to people about artwork. I love kind of talking about the process and the things that have gotten me here. But when I got into a classroom, I was like, oh no, this does not feel good. I don't like, and it was just different. Like, I think because I taught social studies, it was so much about, you know, leaning into relationships and people, that is so much of what I loved, that it was just like I needed to keep those worlds a little bit separate.
Makes sense,
I'm okay with that.
So you don't like doing group lessons?
I sometimes I like the group lesson aspect of it, because I think it gets to tap into like what is me, which is like coming alongside women and talking about their journey. So when I can incorporate that, it feels really good, and I like doing that part of it. When I went into a more traditional, let's talk like step by step, like the logistics of painting something, I was like, don't love this as much. And that might be something that evolves later, you know, as my career keeps growing. But for right now, it didn't get all the warm and fuzzies like I have with other things. Yeah.
Your group lessons, like I'm gonna make a bunch of random jump points.
Yeah.
I love seeing it, because when I originally, my wife booked a lesson with like a bunch of our neighbors, and like, hey, we're going to go do a group painting with Whitney. I was like, so you're just going to have like a naked artist just sitting there, just like art class?
I knew that was Chris's mind.
I was like, because I've seen a bunch of your stuff, and I'm like, okay, that'd be kind of interesting. And I knew the venue you were going in, so it could have worked.
It could have,
I was like, but this is also very just interesting. But I thought it was fun to see how different everyone, even when instructed, like, hey, this is the picture we're going off of, how everyone dictated and drew stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my wife loves art, but she's not a huge artist.
I don't believe that. And hers turned out beautifully.
Yeah, I know. I got to figure out what room to put it in. That is my hardest thing right now.
That is hard. But when you find art that you love, then you just build everything else around it. That's my philosophy. Yes. But that part of the group lessons especially has been one of my favorites, because I feel like that has been the vibe that everyone has loved, is like being able to teach it in a way that says like, hey, because most of the time when I sit down with a group, I sketch out what we're going to paint, because I think so many people are just intimidated by that initial first step.
For sure.
And I'm like, let's not worry about that. Let me do the sketch, and then let's spend the whole time talking about process, and like, because I do try and paint women in a way that is realistic and lean into all the seemingly imperfection things that we're all uncomfortable with and have had, you know, a very complicated journey as a woman to like love our body in that way. So I get to tell that story to women too, and get them to kind of reflect some of those imperfections in their painting. We get to mix colors, we get to talk about technique, and then they gradually through this just like hour and a half, like get so confident as the artist in this moment that they all do turn out so differently. And I normally position them around in a way that they normally have like a buddy that they can look over and see like, what'd she do? But for the most part, they don't get to see what everybody else is doing until almost towards the end. And then we kind of do like a gallery walk, like go see what everybody else did, and they're blown away. And so that's pretty cool.
To me, it's like an elevated like wine and design.
Right.
Like everyone's like, oh, well, when I hear wine and design, I'm like, okay, well, it's going to be the most basic background.
Sure.
Like it's a bad starry night or like a lighthouse photo.
Sure.
And I just laughed when my wife was like, okay, so we're going to do this paint and we're going to drink.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I don't know how this is going to work out. But then, like, she told me about her experience and sitting down with a bunch of women who are all, like, interested in your concept. And I was like, I like this because, I mean, we have a nice sized neighborhood and you have 4 or 5 people and you all have the same piece of art technically.
Right.
Because you had the same start point, but it all looks totally different.
Right.
And it reminds me of, like, photography. Like, everyone in general could be taking a picture from the same point, but we're all seeing it from different elevations.
Perspective, yeah.
Like me and Tyler. If we ever took the same picture, it would be...
That was a height joke for the people that don't know us.
I love it.
But to go back to actually talk about you, how do you come up with your colors when you do these pieces? Because I've looked through, like, anytime you're at a market and I'm, like, free, I'm going to show up and look and be like, oh, I like this color, and trying to figure out, like, where do you come up with, or...
That's a good question. I don't always have the same process, but one thing that I've used a lot of the time is I like interior design inspiration pictures. So I'll go to, like old school Pinterest, or, like, old school. Or, like anthropology, like something that I really love, or an interior designer that I'll follow. And I just love how they put pattern and color together. That might be, I'll kind of start with literally one picture, and that starts me with kind of a color scheme that I like. But much like the rest of my process, I'll start with one thing and then it just evolves over time. So I might work on a piece for 4 or 5 hours in a block, or that transpires over, a week or two. And then as the colors start to develop, I start to pick up on things that I would love to complement with it. But if you see my work, it's a lot of this soft palette, which sometimes I'll have the kind of a more vibrant piece, but for the most part, this soft palette finds me each time. Yeah. And it's intentional in the beginning, but it just happens so organically for me now. And that, I think, connects with people in such a weird way. Like, I don't really think about it as much anymore, but people experiencing my work for the first time, that's one of the first things that they notice. It's just like the warmness of the palette kind of brings them into the artwork, which is kind of fun.
Yes. I think it's because, like, just society in general, everything is just popping out at you all the time. Just so for something that's different out there, that kind of more toned down, neutral pattern is just, like, more inviting and almost... like almost safer, I guess you could say. Be like, know what, like, I can vibe with this. And especially with what you're doing too, kind of having that safeness to it, I think probably resonates a lot with them too.
Absolutely. And I think part of our story has been using this as kind of a therapeutic moment. And so I think that probably comes through in the artwork too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So coming up with concepts and ideas, because you talked about, like, interior design, and my brain is thinking, how am I going to get this black girl with afro into my house?
Sure.
And it's just one of those things where I really, really want that piece and cannot figure out. For those who don't know, you should check out our website or show up at any of the markets Whitney's at, just because she has so many gorgeous pieces.
Thank you.
But there's always been one that I show up and I'm like, I want to buy this, but I don't have a specific room to put it in.
Can I tell you a secret?
Shoot.
That piece got bought.
Oh no.
Okay, so
But
okay, it's good.
I can't say where it's going yet because somebody bought it for a local business owner as a surprise.
Oh no way.
But we're gonna install it in a couple of weeks, and so follow on social so you can see where it ends up, because I am beyond honored to have this piece up in their space. So you can go and visit her.
Oh, I'm totally. It's interesting.
You still get to see it.
I
It's going
will.
to be in a
Yeah.
perfect location,
Yeah.
and you don't have to worry about finding a spot for it.
True. Versus the
And
three
everyone else,
pieces.
it gets shared with everyone else too.
Yeah.
It's a win-win-win.
Yeah, but I think as a man, sometimes it's harder to wrap your mind around like putting up a giant piece that is focused on, this woman. But but like you connected with
makes
it and you
sense.
loved
Yeah.
it, But I think for women, and I think that this is true across the board too, but I think that it is kind of like I couldn't put that up in my home kind of moment sometimes. And we kind of joke that my work, when we talk about figurative work in women's bodies, that like either you connect with it and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this, I love how it speaks to me, or you're just like, oh, this isn't my thing. Like it's normal, pretty polarizing. But I think it is kind of out of our box to think, let me put this giant piece of artwork up in my home, because it seems risky and vulnerable somehow, I think. But I think it speaks to why I do what I do. And it's to make sure, one, that, women feel represented in fine art. Like, how amazing is it that you could walk, past a gallery downtown and see this piece of artwork that is framed and has value, and you see a woman that looks like you. Mm-hmm. That's powerful, for a woman, especially that, we have a very complicated and strange journey with our bodies and all the internal journeys that all of us are on, but to feel represented in fine art, I think is really important. So, yeah.
So talking about fine art in your installations, I was waiting for it to quiet down for a second. Are there any, two questions off that? One, what has been your favorite installation so far?
Ooh.
And two, and my favorite, I mean, like just a spot where like the vibe just worked really well.
Yeah.
And then two, what would be like a goal for an installation?
That's such a good question. Can I cheat and give two that were my favorite?
Yeah.
So I've done two really, really great installations. One at Flytrap, downtown on 4th, which was it was a little bit earlier in my career, my first solo show. And I think that's why it has a special spot in my heart. Also, we just love Flytrap. Like, it's just like a good neighborhood bar. Yeah. And so to have my work up in there was cozy and wonderful, and just, I loved every second of that one. A more recent one that I absolutely adore is Why Not Sky Bar. And I know you guys had Natalie on this show.
Shout out to Why Not.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that great up there?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Like,
beautiful spot.
It's so beautiful. And Natalie is just a gem of a human being, and had reached out about some artwork. And she said, if you ever want to hang up your artwork somewhere local, like, let's talk. I said, let's talk about that right now. And so I went up to the space and I was like, how could we not paint a whole collection for this space? Because it's beautiful. Not only is it just beautiful because you get the view of the city and the river and all of that, but like the way that she's just created a space in there that is warm and inviting and fun, like just velvet couches and kind of the speakeasy vibe that she's got going. And I could tell that she really had a passion for encouraging women businesses in town. So it just felt like a perfect match. So I've been really lucky to we've got two little collections up there right now, and I think we have more coming this year.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I will say, when we walked in and Natalie was like, oh yeah, so Whitney's going to have like a whole installation here throughout the holidays. And I was like, my brain, as soon as we walked through the rooms, because you hadn't put anything up, I'm like, yep, this fits, this fits.
Right.
Because every room is so many different colors. And like, I feel like your artwork is great because, like you said, there's so many colors that just come to mind when you put them up on the wall, even though a lot of the space is retro.
Yeah.
For some reason, and not for some reason, but in general, your artwork just fits into it.
It really
and
has
like
been.
you're looking around and you're like, oh, that's a naked lady. But it's not like that in your face. Like I've seen some places and you walk in, it's like just a foot, like a photograph of a boob, and you're like, Yes, that's art.
Yeah.
But I think yours just has a nice class and a nice style to it.
Thank you.
And I think those both installations that you talked about are very good.
Thanks.
Very
I
cool
appreciate
places.
that. Yeah, I feel really lucky to be, anytime I can partner with a local business here, it's such an honor. And it's kind of fun. Like, some people who have never experienced my art before are just going up to grab a drink and like are able to see it in this kind of, because sometimes when you paint, you don't always get to picture it in a space.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of fun to have something that's so beautifully decorated. So when you're up there hanging out and you can kind of see it in this wonderful space and just kind of experience the artwork, I think is another layer to it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
And then what's a spot you'd like to be in?
A spot I would like to be in. That's a great question. I don't know. I think I'm looking forward to this year really just being available to women to feel more empowered by artwork.
Yeah.
And I want it to feel accessible. And so I don't think I have the perfect venue for that yet, but I think just making sure that more women feel empowered by artwork and feel connected with that piece of the world, I think is really important. It's been such a big part of our journey. So I think just finding a space where more women can experience that.
So you don't expect to see yourself in like cam or anything like?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, I think partnering with more galleries downtown, every once in a while I'll get to do a guest spot on, with a show in town. And so I think booking a solo show at one of the galleries is definitely on the list. That would be great.
Yeah. See, I got to ask those questions because, like, if you don't
Sure.
speak it into existence,
Absolutely.
it's not going to happen.
You're so right.
You never know who listens to the podcast either. So
That's
be like,
true.
hey, who is this Whitney woman? And
We
take a
really
look.
don't.
That's so true.
And it's interesting. So speaking about like local people that you
Yeah.
collaborated with and women-owned businesses,
Yeah.
are you going to bring back some more of your mugs?
I think Emily and I are going to continue the collab in 2025. I think we want to branch out for some other things too.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
So the mug, if you haven't, you should check out More Than Clay on socials. And she's a local potter, Emily Tibbett. And we're just like market friends, which Wilmington creatives are just like, it's such a wonderful community. And so Emily and I got to know each other and we were like, let's try and do a little collab here. And so I have a pottery problem. Like, I love it so much.
Oh, trust me.
And
Me too.
so Emily said, like, let's let her throw some pottery and then we use glaze to paint my women on the pottery. And then, so we've made some pieces, we've done some mugs and some vases, but yeah, I think we're going to expand that this year.
That's
So
neat.
maybe some mixing bowls, maybe
Exclusives.
some platters, right? So we're looking forward to getting back in the studio this year.
I'm excited.
Me
But
too.
If you haven't noticed, when Chris brings people on there, people that I know like really well,
Yeah.
or like decent amount,
Yeah.
and so I have like all these good questions because I like to hype people up.
Yeah.
And yes, we do have at least one of your mugs.
Do you? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
the
so
mugs are so great.
we have Emily, my wife, sees stuff and she's like, "Oh, I want this," and I'm like, "Okay." Very rarely does she not get something that she likes.
Yeah.
So she got one of your mugs
Yeah.
from the first run that you guys did, and obviously we have a ton of Emily Tippett's, like More Than Clay
Sure.
pottery. around
Also
the
check
house.
out her episode.
Yes, from back when we were in the
I
studio.
was gonna say from a long time ago.
I love it. I love
Gosh,
it.
was that year one?
I think it was.
We'll have to have her back on.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
while.
you should. That's
So
awesome.
That one, and then we do have one of Whitney's pieces of art. It was,
Which you were so sneaky about buying.
yeah, I know.
Like it was a secret.
The biggest pain was trying to gift wrap it for Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I snuck through. She was at a market, and I was like, all right, let me. My wife had been flipping through, and Tippett was like, hey, she wants this one. So I like went over and I was like, let me buy this. And then I wandered away and then came back, and it was just, she loves it. It is mounted above my wine fridge.
She sent me the video of her opening it. That's my favorite part. Is when all the husbands send me the videos of them opening it on like birthdays and Christmas, because I will have a lot of husbands at markets be like, I need that one, but I need you to not say anything. And I'm going to come back and pick that up. And I love it. I love it. That's my favorite part.
I think that is awesome. Like the fact that people in general want to purchase your stuff, but
Right.
do it in a way that like helps empower and surprise.
Right. Because art's an investment. It's and believe me, we know it as small business owners. Like, we understand, and so for somebody to spend their hard-earned money on something like that is such an honor, and so that means a lot to us. Yeah.
So since we are in the beginning of the new year, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but talking about goals and where you want your business to go for the next year, what are some of those like lofty goals that you would love to be able to accomplish?
Yeah, so I think expanding my audience is the big goal, because when it comes to artwork, I've found such a wonderful community here in Wilmington, but I really am looking forward to kind of growing outside of that.
Yeah.
And so just this month, we're heading down to Atlanta for a big art market.
Oh.
And so that's our first like big outside of North Carolina show.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. We'll have about 10 pieces in the show, and this is a really cool, it's a fundraiser for a school down there. It's Trinity School. It's the Shine On Art event. And yeah, they have like 400 plus artists, and they sell, 1,000 plus art pieces a day at this event. So it's a week long. And so I'm looking forward to more of those types of events where I'm just kind of getting out there, expanding my audience a bit. Also increasing commissions. So that's been about 50% of my work these days.
Oh, no way.
And yeah, that's huge.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think that'll be a big driver in 2025 too. But like you said, making more partnerships with some of the galleries downtown. We've been talking to a couple, and so I'd love to see that pan out. And why not is getting new artwork this year too. So yeah, I think just being vulnerable with my story and artwork, and just expanding my audience this year is the goal.
With your husband doing woodworking, have you ever thought about doing a collab with wood or anything?
So Chase is a custom woodworker, which his stuff is, and you can check him out, Port City Bars on Instagram. But he does all of my custom framing for me. So
so there is already.
So
very
there's already a collab happening there. But he's a creative in his own right, and so he. And his brain works in a completely different way than mine does. We always joke that like we're wonderful at communication until it comes to like the logistics of work. And I'm like, are you speaking a different language?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So
you're perfect for each other.
Perfect for each
other. That makes sense, yeah.
Perfect for each other. And so, yeah, we'll continue that, because, I mean, if you've seen any of my work, like one of those floater natural wood frames on it is just the perfect addition. And his work is just stunning.
Oh, that's neat. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So shout out, what was your?
Port City Bars on Instagram. And he does all kinds. He specializes in like outdoor furniture, things like that. But he does all kinds of custom furniture, built-ins, tables, all the fun things.
Honeycombs yet?
We did do a couple of honeycombs, yeah. But really, anything you need made out of wood, he's...
It's such an insight.
Yes.
Talked about honeycombs for 3 years.
That's great.
It's been the running thing. So like in our studio, I am oddly enough like artistic minded. So we walked into the studio and Tyler's like, okay, we're going to put the black sound panels on this wall. Yeah. And I said, well, can I put honeycombs on the opposite wall? And I was just going to do the classic, like just sound dampeners. Yeah. And then I couldn't find any that were a decent price. And then I was like, well, what if we do honeycomb like shelves? And then I realized how much that was also going to cost. Yeah. So we just never got to that point. But I finally got some for my house.
He was like, year one, before we even make money, here's how I want my artistic wall to look. And I was like,
hey,
that sounds like me.
Yes. I'm like, I know what the bar in the studio is going to say. I want people to have options.
Yes.
And Tyler's like, and I want to make some money. So,
and that's why you're a perfect fit. You got to have both.
Exactly.
You got to have both. Yeah. I get that.
So we need to pay for rent.
Technicality.
Right.
we'll make it work.
We get that.
Yep.
For sure.
So just thinking through all the different things that you've done and whatnot. So what is your favorite piece that you've painted so far?
Oh, wow. Oh, I do know what it is. I was going to say I don't know what it is, but I do know. I don't keep a lot of my originals because, we got to pay rent.
Yeah. True.
We get it.
but I did keep one piece, and I do run prints of it. It's one of my higher sellers, but it's a woman, and she's walking in a flower field, and it's all like yellow wildflower, and she's walking with two little girls, and it's called Only for a Moment. And so it hangs in our house. And that one is my favorite piece that I've ever painted. I think that's it. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
I can tell a little story about that.
Please
Yeah,
do.
please.
So I didn't really talk about, what switched and caused me to start painting figurative work, but a big part of our story is that we lost a baby in between our first and second. And that is, for anybody who's gone through that journey, it is difficult and it is hard. And so that was a way for me to kind of just get back in the studio and start painting, was a little therapeutic. And that was literally the first woman figure that I ever painted, was during that journey. And I think I needed that somehow to kind of process, like, for some reason I was like, let's just paint that woman figure to kind of help my brain process what my body physically is going through.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of kind of what my career has turned out to be, which is this figurative work. But that piece kind of came out of that journey. It was in the next little wave of pieces that I created. And so, yeah, that was where that piece came from, was Only for a Moment. And so it's a mama and 2 little girls.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Super special.
Yeah, super special. So I think we'll hang on to that one.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it turned into a career after that,
Right?
too.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes it even more beautiful.
And it just like it's it's one of those moments where you just make a turn and you're just like, this absolutely is where I was supposed to be, because I've always loved to paint, but there's something different that goes into my work that involves women and moms, and specifically women, and just talking about kind of the stories that we all have within ourselves, that feels like it has a depth to my artwork that other things did not have. And I think that that's why people connect with it. Like it's the most honoring thing when somebody comes into, my studio or meets me at a show and is like, I don't know why, but I'm crying when I look at this. And so, and before they can even, know anything about where my mind was when I was painting that, they have experienced some kind of connection to it. And I just don't think that's by mistake. I think that's just, there's something behind them. So, yeah, what an honor.
Yes. So, second thought going down this. So this one, that title makes sense. Where do you get the titles for your other pieces? Are you just like, my brain thinks like when artists name things, I'm like, so you just have like a thesaurus and a dictionary and just roll the dice and says, okay, I'm going to this page and we're going to this. All right,
I should do that. Actually, that would be a better plan. So I'd say 90% of the time I don't name them until I'm done.
Okay.
And so then I've been on this journey with this woman for like a while, and like something about the journey kind of speaks to me about it. And so I'm like, this is the thing. Like sometimes a painting has taken me, 6 months, and like she's looked 1,000 different ways. So like that's one named Her Journey, Her Time. Like it was just, she needed to be what she needed to be for a minute, like, so like that came out afterwards. There's a couple, like there's one that it's more recent that's called Free. And from the moment that sketch hit the canvas, I was like, she is free. Like it's just, and I really think that that's part of just the journey itself. But I would say at the end is when I like sit down and think about like, what's this story that has been told over this time of me painting it? And sometimes I ask Jason, I take none of his suggestions because they're hilariously dad joke driven. Like they're just,
and that makes sense.
so corny and wonderful. But yeah, I don't think any have made the final cut.
See, if he named his pieces for like yard work, like pun dad driven. So instead of like lawn chair, it was like some like silly pun off of like how you got a lawn chair. I'd be like, see, now I would just buy it for the name.
Right. That's why his social media is more fun than mine.
Oh, true.
There's a lot more puns with the wood shop,
We will definitely have him on.
Yeah, you should do that.
At some point in the next year.
He's pretty great.
Oh, come on in.
You have guests.
Yes.
Okay.
So for those who didn't realize, and you don't watch the live episode, we are in the Starling today, doing something a little different. So typically we've been in a sail station, and it's so wide and big, everyone's like, water's in. But here at the Starling, we're on the second floor, which is nice and cozy. It just has a really nice like vibe, especially because we had some artists and just something a little bit different. So we like this vibe.
I like this vibe.
So shout out to the Starling.
Love the Starling.
and I'm supposed to say the Starlin Darlings.
Starlin Darlings.
Not
That's
the Starling
precious.
Darlings.
Starlin Darlings.
Yeah.
We're down south.
Yeah. I'm horrible at this. So one of my last questions for you.
Yeah.
What does success look like for you? See, if you had listened to the podcast previously, you would know this was coming.
I did know this was coming. I think it's twofold for me.
Send it.
So I think personally, we are blown away every day that we like wake up and are like, wait, we're getting to do this full time. Mm-hmm. So I think personally success looks like me being able to do a career out of my house and be able to raise our kids the way we're doing it right now. Like that is number one. So that is success for as long as I get to do that and get to raise, our kiddos and be able to work out of our home. I love that piece of it. More professionally, I think just being able to share my work with more people and continue to be vulnerable. I still feel like I'm at the very edge of the beginning of my career. Like we're 2.5 years in of doing this full time, where I've been able to like put my whole mind behind thinking of like what's next. And so I feel like I haven't even tipped the iceberg here. Like I think I'm excited to just explore what the next step is and to think about what the next big project is. I mean, there are a million things I want to do. Like, can we expand this to textiles? Can we expand this business to being able to, open our own gallery one day and be able to share this journey? I mean, there's something that I think we've tapped into with women getting to connect with the art world in a different way that I don't think I've seen before in my life. And so I'm excited to see what that could organically turn into next. So yeah, success is just leaning into that and continuing to be able to do this full time right now.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So after looking forward a little bit, time to take a look back.
Yeah.
So if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Wow. I would say don't be afraid to do what comes naturally to you. Okay. Like I think in the art world, sometimes it's really easy to compare yourself to everybody else. But what really makes you great is when you lean into what makes you different.
Right.
And it's really easy to just try and mirror your career and your art after another person. But the things that people really connect with me over are the things that no one else is doing. Yeah. And so I think I would tell her just to embrace that part of it. And all the things that you're insecure about, all those other women are insecure about it too. So find a way to connect with them about that and make them feel seen.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, because we've kind of hinted at this before. Yeah. How can people figure out like your artwork, find you on social media? We want to support that.
Thank you. So I'm all over Instagram. That's a whole journey. Mm-hmm. So Whitney Futrell Art on Instagram and on Facebook. My website is whitneyfutrell.com. And as we've talked about, you can find my current collections up at Why Not Sky Bar right now.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So please buy some artwork so I don't have to. I only have 3 more walls available, so
we're going to fill them up.
That. Yep. I'm excited.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This has been a lot of fun.
How was your drink?
It was delightful. I'm getting another one, actually.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah.
Got any notes about it? Anything you noticed different or liked about it?
I agree with you that I feel like this old fashioned is one of the smoothest I've ever had. Mm-hmm. Like it's simple and you get the orange automatically. There's nothing fancy about it. Like it's just beautiful. Like, and I told you guys before we started, I wasn't a big whiskey drinker before I got married. And it was because I only drank bad whiskey.
That'll do it.
It'll do it. It'll do it. So I think this one is one of the best. Yeah. Love the Starling.
Good. I will say my drink, it is, because I love a paper constellation, which is their riff of like a paper plane. Yeah. And this might be my new favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
The plum.
It has to be. Like the gin, like typically with the citrus and like those earthy tones, but with the plum and I don't know.
Are you normally a gin drinker? Like, is that a go-to for you?
No, we drink whiskey.
You drink whiskey. That's true. That's true.
Actually, I drink a lot of water compared to the amount of whiskey I drink.
That's probably good.
Balance.
Yes.
Chris likes a good herbaceous drink.
Don't tempt me. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.